The winter air bit through Sarah Coleman's thick uniform as she navigated her city bus through the empty pre-dawn streets. But nothing could have prepared her for the sight that made her blood run cold. A small boy, no more than 7, standing alone at the wrong bus stop, his thin jacket dusted with snow. His big brown eyes met hers through the windshield, and something in them made her pull over immediately, even though this wasn't her designated stop. When she opened the doors, letting in a blast of frigid air, the boy climbed aboard with trembling hands and whispered words that would change both their lives forever. What followed was a story of fate, courage, and a mother's desperate choice that would rock their entire community. The truth behind his presence there that morning would unravel a web of secrets that had been hidden for years, leading to consequences no one could have predicted. What dark secret was this innocent child carrying that made a seasoned bus driver break down in tears right there in her seat? If you, like us, believe in the power of human kindness, please subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss any more heartwarming stories. Thank you. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she watched the small boy make his way up the bus steps. Snowflakes melted on his dark hair, and his cheeks were flushed red from the bitter cold. He couldn't have been out there for more than an hour, but in these temperatures even that was dangerous. The boy's jacket was thin, more suitable for fall than a harsh Michigan winter, and his sneakers were soaked through. "Hi there, sweetheart," Sarah said softly, trying to keep the worry from her voice. "It's awfully early to be out here alone. Where's your mum or dad?" The boy hugged himself, his small frame shivering. "Mommy won't wake up," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the bus's idling engine. "I tried really hard, but she won't wake up." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. In 15 years of driving city buses, she'd seen all sorts of situations, but something about this child's lost expression made her maternal instincts scream that this was different. "What's your name, honey?" she asked, already reaching for her radio. "Tommy," he replied, rubbing his cold hands together. "Tommy Matthews. I live at 417 Pine Street, but—" His voice cracked slightly. "I couldn't stay there anymore. Mommy's so cold." Sarah swallowed hard, fighting to maintain her composure. She knew Pine Street. It was nearly 2 miles from this stop. This little boy had walked all that way in the dark, in freezing temperatures. "Tommy, would you like to sit right here where it's warm?" She gestured to the front seat closest to her heating vent. "I'm going to call some people who can help us check on your mom, okay?" He nodded, climbing into the seat. His movements were stiff from the cold, and Sarah noticed he was wearing pajama pants under his jeans, as if he'd dressed himself in a hurry, putting on whatever he could find. "Dispatch, this is bus 247, Sarah spoke into her radio, keeping her voice steady while maintaining eye contact with Tommy. "I need police presence at my location immediately. I have a minor child who reports his mother is unresponsive at 417 Pine Street. Child appears to have walked approximately 2 miles in below-freezing conditions." The response was immediate, professional, but Sarah barely heard it. She was too focused on Tommy, who had started to cry silently, big tears rolling down his cold, reddened cheeks. "I tried to wake her up," he repeated, his small shoulders shaking. "She promised she wouldn't do it again. She promised." Sarah felt her own eyes welling up as the implications of his words sank in. She unzipped her thick uniform jacket and draped it around Tommy's shoulders, then reached for the emergency blanket she kept under her seat. Years ago, a veteran driver had advised her to always keep one handy, and she'd never been more grateful for that advice than she was right now. The police arrived within minutes, their red and blue lights painting the snow-covered streets in alternating colors. Sarah had managed to get Tommy to drink some water from her personal bottle, and he'd stopped shivering quite so violently, though his eyes remained fixed on the window, watching the gathering emergency vehicles with a mixture of fear and resignation that no child his age should know. "Ma'am, we'll need you to stay here with the child while we check the residence," one of the officers said, after taking Tommy's information. Sarah nodded, knowing protocol but hating every second of it. She'd moved to sit next to Tommy, and his small hand had found its way into hers, holding on with surprising strength. Through the bus windshield, they watched as officers approached the small weathered house. The porch light was on, casting a weak yellow glow that made the peeling paint look even more forlorn. Sarah felt Tommy's grip tighten as the officers disappeared inside. "I tried to make her breakfast," Tommy said suddenly, his voice small but steady. "She always says breakfast is important, but she wouldn't move, just like last time. But worse." Sarah felt her heart breaking. Last time? she asked gently. Sometimes Mommy gets really tired and sleeps for a long time, but she always wakes up when I shake her really hard. His bottom lip trembled. This time she didn't, and she felt different, cold. The radio crackled to life with codes Sarah had learned to dread during her years on the job. Medical emergency, possible overdose, deceased on scene. Each word felt like a physical blow, but she forced herself to remain calm for Tommy's sake. An ambulance pulled up, its sirens mercifully silent. The paramedics moved with urgent purpose but without their usual rush. Another sign that confirmed what Sarah already knew in her heart. Tommy's mother was gone. They're going to help her, right? Tommy's voice cracked with hope and fear. Like last time when the doctors made her better? Sarah pulled him closer, her uniform jacket still draped around his small frame. Tommy, sweetheart, she began, but was interrupted by the approach of a female officer, her face grave but kind. Hi, Tommy. I'm Officer Martinez, she said, kneeling, down to eye level with the boy. We're going to need you to come with me now. There are some people who need to talk to you, and we need to make sure you're okay after being out in the cold. Tommy's grip on Sarah's hand became almost painful. Can Miss Sarah come too? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Officer Martinez glanced at Sarah, then back at Tommy. Your bus driver? Well, she needs to finish her route. Actually, Sarah interrupted, making a decision that would change both their lives forever. I've already radioed in. They're sending a replacement driver for my route. She hadn't, but she would. Some things were more important than protocol. The officer seemed to understand. She nodded slowly, her eyes softening. All right then. You can both come in the patrol car. We need to get Tommy checked out at the hospital, and then we'll need to talk about what happens next. As they walked toward the patrol car, Sarah caught glimpses of the scene unfolding at House 417. More officers had arrived, and she could see them taking photographs, marking evidence. She tried to block Tommy's view, but he turned and looked. Anyway, his young face showing her understanding far beyond his years. Mommy broke her promise, he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. She said she'd stay with me forever this time. She promised. Sarah felt tears sliding down her cheeks as she helped Tommy into the back of the patrol car. Sometimes, promises she knew were broken not for lack of love, but because the person making them wasn't strong enough to keep them. She had a feeling Tommy already understood this too well. Just 12 hours earlier, Rebecca Matthews had sat at her kitchen table, staring at a worn envelope and fighting the familiar tremors in her hands. Tommy was in his room, reading his favorite comic book, the one about superheroes who could save anyone no matter how far gone they were. The irony wasn't lost on her. Just one more day, she whispered to herself, her fingers tracing the edges of the envelope that contained 3 months of sobriety chips. She'd been doing so well. This time, Tommy had started smiling more, trusting her promises again. His teacher had even commented on the improvement in his schoolwork. But then the layoffs had come at the diner, and with them the old familiar panic. The bills piled up, and with them the cravings grew stronger. She'd resisted for weeks, telling herself that Tommy needed her more than she needed the escape. But tonight, the demon that lived in her veins was screaming louder than her better judgment. Rebecca pulled out a sheet of paper and began to write, her handwriting shaky but determined. My dearest Tommy, I need you to know that none of this was your fault. You were the light of my life, the reason I tried so hard to be better. Everything good in me existed because of you. There are things I never told you, things about your father that you deserve to know. She paused, wiping tears from her cheeks. Through the thin walls, she could hear Tommy talking to himself as he read, doing different voices for different characters, her beautiful, resilient boy who had learned too young how to take care of himself. The letter continued, page after page of confessions, apologies, and a truth she'd kept hidden for 7 years, the identity of Tommy's father, and why she'd never told him about his son. She included contact information, bank accounts she'd never touched, and a final desperate plea for forgiveness. When she finished writing, Rebecca sealed the letter in a fresh envelope and wrote, "For Tommy," on the front. She tucked it into his favorite book, knowing he'd find it eventually. Then she went to his room one last time. Time for bed, sweetheart, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Tommy looked up, his face bright with innocent love. 5 more minutes, please? The hero's about to save everyone. Okay, 5 more minutes, she agreed, sitting on his bed. Can I have a hug first? Tommy launched himself into her arms. and Rebecca held him tight, memorizing every detail. The smell of his shampoo, the warmth of his small body, the pure trust in his embrace. "I love you more than anything in this whole world," she whispered, into his hair. "Don't ever forget that." "Love you too, Mommy," Tommy mumbled, already turning back to his comic. "The hero always wins in the end, right?" Rebecca stood up, her legs shaking. "Right, baby, the hero always wins." She paused at his doorway, taking one last look at her son. "Sweet dreams, Tommy. Sweet dreams, Mommy. See you at breakfast." Those were the last words he would ever say to her. Hours later, in the cold darkness of her bathroom, Rebecca Matthews lost her final battle with addiction, leaving behind a little boy who would spend the rest of his life trying to understand. Why some heroes couldn't save themselves? The fluorescent lights of Detroit Children's Hospital cast harsh shadows across Tommy's sleeping face. He'd finally drifted off after the doctors had checked him for hypothermia and other cold weather effects, his small hand still clutching Sarah's. Even in sleep, she hadn't left his side, not even when her supervisor called demanding an explanation for abandoning her route. Ms. Coleman, a woman in a charcoal grey suit, appeared in the doorway, her expression professionally neutral. "I'm Linda Warren from Child Protective Services. Could we speak outside?" Sarah carefully extracted her hand from Tommy's grip, her heart aching as he stirred slightly before settling back into exhausted sleep. She followed the social worker into the hallway, already dreading what was coming. "I understand you're the bus driver who found him," Linda said, consulting her tablet. "We appreciate your assistance, but we'll take things from here. We've located an emergency placement facility that can take him tonight." "A facility?" Sarah's voice came out sharper than intended. "He's just lost his mother. He needs stability, not an institution." Linda's expression softened slightly. "I understand your concern, but this is standard procedure. Once we've completed our initial assessment, we'll look for a suitable foster placement." "I'll take him," Sarah said, surprising herself with the immediacy of her response. "Temporarily, at least, until you can find his family." "Ms. Coleman, while your concern is admirable, there are protocols we must follow. Background checks, home studies, training programs." Linda paused, studying Sarah's face. "Besides, you're a stranger who met him just hours ago." "I'm also the only person he trusts right now," Sarah countered, thinking of the way Tommy had clung to her through the medical examinations, how he'd only spoken when she encouraged him. "He's been through enough trauma today." A nurse approached, them holding a plastic bag. "We found this in his jacket pocket," she said, handing it to Linda. "It's addressed to him." Sarah recognized Rebecca's handwriting on the envelope. "For Tommy." Linda opened it carefully, her eyes scanning the contents. Her professional demeanor cracked slightly as she read. "Well," she said finally, "this changes things." She looked at Sarah with new interest. "It seems Tommy's mother left some very specific information about his father, a man named James Harrison. He's a corporate lawyer in Birmingham. Successful, married, no other children." Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Birmingham was one of Detroit's wealthiest suburbs, worlds away from Tommy's life on Pine Street. Does he know about Tommy? According to this letter, no. Rebecca never told him she was pregnant. Linda sighed, rubbing her temples. "This complicates things. We'll need to notify him, of course. He has rights as the biological father." A small sound from the doorway made them both turn. Tommy stood there in his hospital gown, looking even smaller than before. "I don't want to go with strangers," he said, his voice trembling but determined. "Can I stay with Miss Sarah?" "Please." Linda looked between them, her professional reserve, warring with the obvious bond she could see. Finally, she pulled out her phone. "Let me make some calls. Ms. Coleman will need to start your emergency foster care certification immediately. It's not standard procedure, but..." She glanced at Tommy, who had moved to stand close to Sarah. "Sometimes procedures need to bend for the best interest of the child." Sarah wrapped an arm around Tommy's shoulders, feeling him lean into her side. "I have a spare room," she said, "and I can take family leave from work, whatever it takes." "You should know," Linda warned. "Once we notify the father, everything could change. If he wants custody, then we'll deal with that when it comes," Sarah interrupted, feeling Tommy's grip tighten on her shirt. "Right now, this boy needs someone he trusts, and a safe place to grieve his mother." Linda nodded slowly. "I'll start the paperwork, but..." "Ms. Coleman, don't make promises you can't keep. This situation is temporary at best." As the social worker walked away, Tommy looked up at Sarah with eyes too old for his young face. "Are you going to leave too?" he asked quietly. Sarah knelt down to his level, her heart breaking at the fear in his voice. "No, Tommy, I'm not going. Anywhere. We'll figure this out together, okay?" He nodded, wrapping his arms around her neck in a fierce hug. Over his shoulder, Sarah caught sight of their reflection in the hospital window, a bus driver still in her uniform, holding a grieving boy she'd met just hours ago. Nothing about this was conventional, but somehow it felt absolutely right. Sarah's apartment felt different with Tommy in it. The spare room she'd used for storage had been quickly transformed into a child's bedroom with borrowed bedding from her neighbor and a small lamp that cast gentle shadows on the walls. It wasn't much, but it was safe, and for now that had to be enough. "You've got to be kidding me, Sarah," her sister Rachel's voice crackled through the phone. "You can't just take in some random kid. What about your job, your life?" Sarah watched Tommy, sleeping through the cracked door as she whispered into her phone. "You don't understand, Rachel. If you'd seen him standing there in the snow—" She paused, memories of her own childhood surfacing. "Someone did it for us, remember?" There was a long silence on the other end. They rarely talked about their time in foster care after their parents' accident, or about Ms. Martinez, the teacher who'd taken them both in when the system had threatened to separate them. "That was different," Rachel finally said, but her voice had softened. "We were her students, she knew us. And I know Tommy. Maybe not for long, but I know enough." Sarah sank into her kitchen chair, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "He has the same look in his eyes that we did. That fear of being alone, of being separated from everything familiar." A small sound from Tommy's room made her stand up. "I have to go. He has nightmares." "Sarah," Rachel called before she could hang up. "Just be careful, okay? Don't let them break your heart when they take him away." But Sarah was already moving toward Tommy's room, where he sat upright in bed, his breath coming in short gasps. "I couldn't find you," he said as she sat beside him. "I was back at the bus stop, but you didn't come this time." "I'm right here," she soothed, running a hand through his hair. "Try to go back to sleep." "Can you tell me about the stars again?" he asked, settling back against his pillows. "Like you did at the hospital?" Sarah smiled, remembering how she'd distracted him during the long wait for paperwork by making up stories about constellations. "Well, right above us is Ursa Major, the great bear. Some people say she's a mother bear watching over her cub." At work the next day, Sarah sat in her supervisor's office, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I understand this is unprecedented, Mr. Davis, but I have more than enough personal days saved up." "This isn't about time off, Sarah," Davis interrupted, his face stern. "It's about boundaries. You're a bus driver, not a social worker. What happens when they find this kid's father? When they place him in a proper foster home? You're setting yourself up for heartbreak and possibly legal issues." "With all due respect, sir," Sarah met his gaze steadily, "I'm not asking for permission. I'm notifying you of my decision to use my accumulated leave time, as is my right under union rules." Davis leaned back, studying her. 15 years you've worked this job. Never late, never a complaint. Now you're willing to risk everything. For a child you barely know, sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks, Sarah replied, thinking of Ms. Martinez and how she'd risked her teaching career to keep Sarah and Rachel together. "The union will back you on the leave time," Davis said finally. "But Sarah, don't let this destroy the life you've built." Later that afternoon, as Sarah helped Tommy with homework from the packets his school had sent over, her phone buzzed with a message from Linda Warren. "Father has been notified. Requesting DNA test. Meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. Tommy looked up from his math problems. "Are you okay? You look worried." Sarah forced a smile. "Just grown-up stuff. Hey, how about we take a break and make those cookies you were talking about? The ones your mom used to make." Tommy's face lit up briefly before clouding over. "I don't remember all the ingredients," he said quietly. "Mom never wrote it down. She said it was all in her heart." Sarah felt her own heart constrict. "Then we'll make our own recipe," she said, standing up. "We'll put all our hearts into it, and maybe they'll taste just as special." As they measured flour and sugar, making more mess than cookies, Sarah tried to memorize every moment, every laugh, every concentrated frown as Tommy carefully cracked eggs, every flour handprint on her kitchen counter. She knew tomorrow could change everything, but for now, in this moment, they were just a family making cookies together. The letter sat between them on Sarah's kitchen table like a live wire, its pages carefully smoothed after being crumpled in Tommy's jacket pocket. Linda Warren had brought it over after having copies made for the official record. And now Sarah sat with Tommy, her heart heavy as he traced his mother's handwriting with small fingers. "Would you like me to read it to you?" Sarah asked gently. Tommy nodded, scooting his chair closer to hers. "My dearest Tommy," Sarah began, her voice soft but steady, "I need you to know that none of this was your fault. You were the light of my life, the reason I tried so hard to be better. Everything good in me existed because of you." Tommy leaned against her shoulder, his eyes fixed on the familiar loops and curves of his mother's writing. "There are things I never told you, things about your father that you deserve to know. I met him 7 years ago when I was working as a legal secretary at Harrison and Mills. His name is James Harrison, and he is one of the partners. We fell in love, or at least I thought we did. He was married, and I was young and foolish, enough to believe him when he said he would leave his wife." Sarah paused, feeling Tommy tense beside her. She almost stopped reading, but his small hand gripped her arm, urging her to continue. "When I found out I was pregnant with you, I was so scared. James had already ended things between us, going back to his wife and his perfect life in Birmingham. I couldn't bear the thought of being just another scandal for him to sweep under the rug. But you, my beautiful boy, you were never a mistake. You were my miracle." The letter went on, detailing account numbers at banks Sarah had never heard of, small amounts of money Rebecca had managed to save over the years. There was information about James Harrison, his business address, his home address, even the names of his partners at the law firm. "I'm leaving this letter because I know I'm not strong enough anymore. The darkness is winning, and you deserve so much better than a mother who can't keep her promises. In the bottom drawer of my dresser, there's a box with evidence, photos, letters, emails that prove James is your father. I kept them not for revenge, but to make sure you would have answers one day." Tommy's grip on Sarah's arm tightened. "There's more," he whispered, pointing to the final paragraph. "My biggest regret is not giving you the father you deserved. James Harrison is a powerful man, but he's also a coward who chose his reputation over his own child. But Tommy, you are so much more than his choices or my failures. You are pure, light, pure love, and I know that somewhere out there, someone will see that in you the way I always have." Sarah's voice cracked on the final lines. "I love you more than life itself. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. Please forgive me, Mum." The kitchen fell silent except for the soft ticking of the clock and Tommy's quiet sniffles. Sarah pulled him into her lap, letting him bury his face in her shoulder. "She loved you so much," Sarah whispered into his hair. "Sometimes people can love with all their heart and still not be strong enough to stay." "Did she know about the box?" Linda asked from the doorway where she'd been listening quietly. "The one with the evidence?" Tommy nodded against Sarah's shoulder. "I saw her looking at it sometimes when she thought I was sleeping. It's in her room." Linda made a note on her tablet. "We'll need that box for the hearing tomorrow. Mr. Harrison's lawyers are already trying to dispute paternity." Sarah felt Tommy begin to tremble. "Do I have to go with him? I don't want a father who didn't want me." "No one's going anywhere yet," Sarah assured him, though she knew it wasn't entirely her promise to make. "Right now you're safe here with me." Linda's expression was sympathetic but realistic. "The court will consider all options, Tommy. But your mother's letter and the evidence she kept, that changes things. It gives us leverage." "Leverage? For what?" Tommy asked, sitting up and wiping his eyes. "To make sure whatever happens next is what's best for you," Linda replied, her professional mask softening as she watched Tommy lean back into Sarah's embrace. "Your mother's last gift to you was the truth. Now it's our job to use that truth to protect you." Sarah held Tommy tighter, thinking about the meeting tomorrow, about James Harrison and his expensive lawyers, about all the ways lives could be turned upside down by a single letter. But right now, in her small kitchen, with Tommy's trust warm against her heart, she made a silent promise to Rebecca Matthews. "Your son will be loved. He will be protected. He will know his worth goes far beyond any mistakes his parents made." The law offices of Harrison and Mills occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown high-rise, a world away from Pine Street. Linda Warren's preliminary investigation had uncovered what Rebecca's letter had only hinted at. James Harrison wasn't just successful, he was Detroit legal royalty. His firm handled mergers worth billions. His wife chaired multiple charity boards, and their Christmas parties made the society pages. He's worth millions, Linda explained to Sarah over coffee. In a diner across from the building, Tommy was at his first counseling session, arranged by CPS. The trust fund he set up for his wife alone could put Tommy through college 10 times over. Sarah watched a sleek black car pull up to the building's entrance, but he never sent a dime to help Rebecca, even when she was struggling to feed their son. According to these, Linda spread out printouts of old emails, retrieved from Rebecca's box of evidence. She did reach out 3 times, first when she was pregnant, then when Tommy was born, and again when he started school. Sarah leaned forward, reading the cold, formal responses from Harrison's legal team. Our client denies any personal relationship. Any further contact will be considered harassment. Cease and desist. He buried her, Sarah whispered, anger rising in her throat. Used his power and money to make her disappear. Yes, but Rebecca was smarter than he gave her credit for. Linda pulled out more documents. She kept everything. Photos of them together at firm events, hotel receipts, love letters he wrote. Her? She even had a paternity test done when Tommy was born, though she never filed it. Sarah's coffee grew cold as they pored over the evidence. A younger James Harrison smiled from photographs, his arm around Rebecca at holiday parties. Handwritten notes on legal letterhead promised love, future, forever. Bank statements showed small deposits, hush money perhaps, that stopped abruptly when Rebecca refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But why keep it all secret from Tommy? Sarah wondered aloud. Why let him grow up thinking he had no father? The last email explains that, Linda said softly, sliding over a printed page. She wrote it 6 months ago, but never sent it. Sarah read aloud. James, I won't ask for money anymore. I won't ask for anything. But Tommy deserves to know his father's name, to understand that his existence isn't a mistake. He has your eyes, your laugh, your way of thinking through problems step by step. He's the best of both of us, though I know you'll never allow yourself to see it. I'm trying to get clean again for him. If I fail this time, he'll need someone. Please, if not for me, then for your son. The email was never finished, Linda said quietly. Found it saved in her drafts. Sarah thought of Tommy in his counseling session, trying to make sense of a world that kept shifting under his feet. What happens now? Now it gets complicated. Harrison's wife is pregnant, their first child. The timing couldn't be worse for him. A secret, illegitimate son appearing just as he's about to become a father. Linda shook her head. His lawyers have been calling all morning, trying to buy silence, offering a trust fund for Tommy, private school, college, everything Rebecca couldn't give him, all contingent on complete confidentiality and no contact. Sarah felt sick. They want to erase him, just like they tried to erase Rebecca. It's not an unusual arrangement in these situations, Linda said carefully. The money would secure Tommy's future. His future shouldn't have to be bought with his identity, Sarah snapped, then took a deep breath. Sorry, I've seen what secrets do to kids, how they internalize shame that isn't theirs to carry. Linda gathered the documents, tucking them carefully away. Harrison's asked for a private meeting. Tomorrow morning, he wants to see Tommy. No, Sarah said immediately. He doesn't get to waltz in now after 7 years of denial. That's not our decision to make, Linda reminded her gently. Tommy has a right to meet his father, and Harrison has parental rights that no amount of past behavior can simply erase. Sarah stared out the diner window at the towering law offices. Somewhere up there, a man was probably sitting in an expensive office, strategizing how to deal with the son he'd pretended didn't exist. A son who, at this very moment, was sharing his fears with a child psychologist, trying to understand why everyone he loved seemed to leave him. I'll be there, Sarah said firmly. When he meets Tommy, I don't care about legal rights or protocol. That boy doesn't face another trauma alone. Linda studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I'll arrange it. But Sarah, remember what I said about not making promises you can't keep. Harrison has the resources to make this very difficult for everyone. Some things are worth fighting for, Sarah replied, thinking of Tommy's resilient spirit, his capacity for love despite everything he'd lost. Some promises have to be kept, no matter the cost. As they left the diner, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from the counseling center. Tommy was done early, asking for her. She hurried to her car, leaving the shadow of Harrison and Mills behind. But knowing it would loom over all their tomorrows until the truth, all of it, finally came to light. The conference room at Child Protective Services felt too small for the weight of the moment it contained. Tommy sat between Sarah and Linda, his small frame nearly disappearing into the oversized office chair. Across the table, James Harrison, cut an imposing figure in his tailored suit, flanked by two attorneys who hadn't stopped writing since the meeting began. "Hello, Tommy," Harrison said, his voice softer than Sarah had expected. I'm James, though I suppose you know that now." Tommy didn't respond. His hand found Sarah's under the table, squeezing tight. "Perhaps," one of Harrison's lawyers interjected, smoothly, "we could have a moment alone with the boy, to establish a natural rapport without outside influences." "No," Tommy said suddenly, his voice small but firm. "I want Miss Sarah to stay." Harrison's face tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, these circumstances are unusual. But Tommy, I want you to know that I'm here now, ready to take responsibility." Sarah felt Tommy's grip tighten. She'd stayed up late with him the night before, talking through his fears, helping him understand he didn't owe this man anything. Not his trust, not his love, not even his attention. "Why didn't you want me before?" Tommy asked, the question hanging in the air like shattered glass. The lawyers shifted uncomfortably, but Harrison held up a hand to silence their attempted intervention. "It's complicated, son. I made mistakes. Choices I'm not proud of. Mom said you knew about me. She showed you my picture when I was born." Tommy's voice wavered but didn't break. "She asked for help when we didn't have enough food." Harrison's composed facade cracked slightly. "Your mother and our relationship was complex. There were circumstances, obligations." "You were afraid?" Tommy interrupted, surprising everyone. "Mom explained it in her letter. You were afraid I would ruin your perfect life." The silence that followed was deafening. Harrison's lawyers exchanged glances, pens finally still. "I can give you a better life now," Harrison said finally. "Private school, a trust fund, opportunities your mother couldn't—" "Don't," Tommy's voice cracked. "Don't talk about my mom like that. She read to me every night, even when she was really tired. She came to every school play. His voice broke, and Sarah wrapped an arm around his shoulders. "She tried really hard to stay." Harrison leaned forward, his carefully maintained composure slipping. "Tommy, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I'm your father. We share blood." "Blood doesn't make a family," Tommy said, words Sarah recognized from their late-night talks. "Love does. Being there does. Like Miss Sarah." One of the lawyers cleared his throat. "Mr. Harrison has parental rights that he ignored for 7 years," Linda interrupted coolly. "Rights he explicitly denied in writing multiple times." "My client's circumstances have changed," the lawyer persisted. "He's prepared to offer—" "I don't want his money," Tommy said, standing up suddenly. "I don't want his school or his trust fund or his perfect life. I want—" His voice hitched. "I want my mom back, but since I can't have that, I want to stay with someone who actually wants me, who didn't have to be forced to care." Harrison stood as well, his height imposing. "You don't understand what you're saying. You're just a child." "No," Sarah spoke for the first time, her voice steady. "He understands perfectly. He understands that love isn't something you can buy when it's convenient. It's something you give freely, consistently, even when it's hard. This isn't over." Harrison's other lawyer warned, "We'll take this to court." "Yes," Linda agreed, gathering her files. "We will. And when we do, every piece of evidence Rebecca Matthews kept, every letter, every photo, every rejected plea for help, will become public record." "Is that really what you want, Mr. Harrison?" The threat hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Scandal, exposure, the carefully maintained image of Detroit's premier lawyer shattered. Harrison stared at his son, really looked at him perhaps for the first time, and something shifted in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Regret. "You have her eyes," he said softly, "her determination. I have her heart, too," Tommy replied, turning away. "Can we go home now, Miss Sarah?" Sarah stood, keeping her arm around Tommy's shoulders. "Yes, sweetheart, we can go home." As they walked out, Harrison called after them. "Tommy, wait, please. We can find a way to make this work." Tommy paused in the doorway but didn't. "Turn around. Maybe someday," he said quietly, "but not because you have to. Only if you really want to know me, the real me, not just the secret you tried to hide." The door closed behind them with a soft click, leaving James Harrison and his lawyers with nothing but the echo of truth in a child's voice. The Detroit winter tightened its grip on the city as January deepened, bringing with it the kind of cold that seemed to freeze more than just the air. Sarah stood at her apartment window, watching snow spiral down in the glow of streetlights, her mind racing with the day's events. Behind her, Tommy slept on the couch, exhausted from the emotional toll of meeting his father. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Rachel. Saw the Harrison name in the legal notices. Sarah, do you know what you're getting into? She did and she didn't. Her savings were dwindling faster than expected. Taking in a child meant more than just food and clothing. It meant doctor's appointments, school supplies, winter boots when his old ones sprang a leak. Her leave from work would end soon, and then what? Childcare costs alone would eat half her paycheck. A small sound from the couch drew her attention. Tommy was stirring, his face troubled in sleep. "Mom," he murmured. "Don't go." Sarah moved. To him quickly, kneeling beside the couch. "It's okay," she whispered, smoothing his hair. "You're safe." His eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to recognition. "I had the dream again," he said softly, "about the snow and the bus stop, but this time no one came." "I'll always come," Sarah promised, even as a voice in her head echoed Linda's, warning about promises she might not be able to keep. Tommy sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Mr. Harrison, my father, he has a baby coming, a real family." "Hey!" Sarah took his hands in hers. "You are real. Your feelings are real. Your worth is real. Don't let anyone make you feel like a secret that needs to be kept. But what if the judge makes me go with him? His house is huge, his wife has a garden, and there's a pool, and none of that matters if you're not loved for exactly who you are," Sarah finished firmly. "Besides, we have something better than a pool." "What?" "Hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Come on." In the kitchen, as Sarah heated milk on the stove, Tommy sat at the table drawing. He'd been doing that more lately, creating elaborate stories in pictures, filling pages with colors and life. "What are you drawing?" she asked, stirring cocoa into the warm milk. "Us," he said simply, pushing the paper toward her. The crayon figures showed Sarah and Tommy building a snowman, while a larger figure, Rebecca, watched from above, surrounded by stars. Mom loved the stars. She said they were windows to heaven. Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. "That's beautiful, Tommy." "Miss Sarah." His voice was hesitant. "Can I tell you something?" "Anything." Sometimes I feel happy being here with you, and then I feel bad, because how can I be happy when Mom is gone?" His lower lip trembled. "Does that make me a bad person?" Sarah abandoned the cocoa and pulled him into a tight hug. "No, sweetheart, it makes you human. Your mom wanted you to be happy. Being happy doesn't mean you love her any less. But what if I forget her? What if I forget what her voice sounded like or how she smiled? Then I'll help you remember," Sarah promised. "We'll write down all your memories, save every picture. She'll always be part of your story." Later that night, after Tommy had finally fallen asleep in his bed, Sarah sat at her kitchen table with a pile of bills and a growing headache. Her sister's words echoed in her mind. "You can't save everyone, Sarah." But this wasn't about saving everyone. This was about one boy who'd walked through the snow looking for help, who'd found his way not just to her bus, but to her heart. Boy who drew his mother in the stars and faced down a father who denied his existence with more courage than most adults possessed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Linda. Harrison's lawyers filed preliminary custody papers. Hearing set for next month. Need to talk strategy. Sarah closed her eyes, letting out a long breath. The road ahead would be hard. She had no illusions about that. She was a bus driver going up against one of Detroit's most powerful lawyers. Her apartment wasn't fancy. Her bank account was modest, and her family thought she was crazy. But then she thought of Tommy's drawing, of the three figures connected by love that transcended even death. She thought of Rebecca Matthews, who'd fought her demons with everything she had, trying to give her son a chance at happiness. She thought of her own foster mother, Ms. Martinez, who'd taught her that family wasn't about blood or money or power. It was about choosing to love, choosing to stay, choosing to fight even when the odds seemed impossible. The snow continued to fall outside, covering the city in a blanket of white that made everything look fresh and new. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more battles, more hard choices. But for tonight, in this moment, Sarah had everything she needed. A sleeping boy who trusted her, a warm apartment that had become a home, and the unwavering certainty that some fights were worth every sacrifice they demanded. The social worker's office was cluttered with files, each one representing a life in transition, a story unfinished. Linda spread Rebecca Matthews's file across her desk as Sarah sat across from her, both women poring over the documents that would help determine Tommy's future. Rebecca's story is more complicated than we initially thought, Linda said, pulling out a worn photograph. A teenage Rebecca smiled at the camera, wearing a medal and holding a science trophy. She was a scholarship student at Detroit Prep, perfect grades, early admission to Michigan State. Sarah studied the photo, seeing traces of Tommy and his mother's. Bright eyes and determined smile. What happened? Her father died during her freshman year of college. Cancer. Medical bills wiped out their savings. Linda pulled out more documents. She dropped out to help her mother, took the secretarial job at Harrison and Mills. The rest we know, Sarah finished quietly, thinking of the affair, the pregnancy, the spiral into addiction. Not all of it. Linda hesitated, then produced a newer document. The police finished their investigation of Rebecca's apartment. They found journals, dozens of them. She'd been writing to Tommy since he was born. Sarah's heart clenched. Has he seen them? Not yet. We needed to review them first, make sure they were appropriate. Linda's voice softened. They're beautiful, Sarah. Even at her lowest points, her love for him shines through every page. She handed Sarah one of the journals, open to a page dated just months ago. My dearest Tommy, today you got an A on your science project, the one about stars. You were so excited, bouncing around the kitchen, telling me all about constellations and light years. In that moment you looked so much like I used to be before I lost my way. You have my love of learning, but you have something else too, something stronger than my weakness, brighter than my darkness. You have hope. I'm trying. Again, baby. Day 3 of being clean. When the cravings hit, I look at your science project stars stuck to our refrigerator, and I remember how you said that even dead stars still give light. Maybe that's what I can be for you, a light that keeps shining, even after I'm gone. Sarah wiped her eyes, her voice rough. She was fighting so hard. She was, Linda agreed, and these journals prove something else. She was documenting everything. Her attempts to contact Harrison, his rejections, her struggles with addiction, her efforts to stay clean. It's all here, dated and detailed. How does this help Tommy? It helps because it shows pattern and intent. Rebecca wasn't just a troubled woman making accusations. She was methodically creating a record, protecting her son's rights even when she couldn't protect herself. Linda pulled out another file, James Harrison's background check. Meanwhile, our investigation into Harrison has been enlightening. He's not as clean as his public image suggests. There have been other women, other payoffs, all buried under layers of NDAs and legal threats. Does his wife know? She does now. Linda's expression was grim. The pregnancy announcement wasn't just coincidence. They've been trying for years. The timing of Tommy's emergence, it's thrown their whole world into chaos. Sarah thought of Tommy, sleeping peacefully at her sister Rachel's house, unaware of how many adults were fighting over his future. Harrison's lawyers have been calling daily, increasing the trust fund offers. Money isn't the issue anymore, Linda said, shuffling through more papers. Harrison's wife, Patricia, she's demanding a full investigation. If there's one child he denied, could there be others? Their prenup had a morality clause. He stands to lose millions if the truth comes out, Sarah finished. So now Tommy's not just an inconvenience, he's a threat, which makes him both valuable and vulnerable. Linda leaned forward. Harrison's legal team is building a case around stability and resources. They'll argue that a single bus driver with no childcare experience can't provide the life Tommy deserves. And they'll argue that what Tommy deserves is love, honesty, and acceptance. Sarah stood, walking to the window. He deserves someone who chooses him, not someone who's forced to acknowledge him because they got caught. The court doesn't always see it that way, Linda warned. Money and influence speak loudly. Then we'll speak louder. Sarah turned back, her voice firm. Rebecca's journals, her documentation, the years of rejected pleas for help, that's our voice. Tommy's courage in standing up to Harrison, his emotional well-being since coming to live with me, that's our voice. Linda studied her for a long moment. You know this could get ugly. Harrison's team will dig into your past, your finances, everything. Let them. Sarah thought of Tommy's drawing on her refrigerator. 3 figures under the stars, a family chosen rather than born. I have nothing to hide and everything to fight for. As if on cue, her phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. Tommy just beat me at chess. Said his mom taught him. "This kid is something special, sis." Sarah smiled, showing Linda the message. "That's what Harrison doesn't understand. Tommy isn't a problem to be solved or a scandal to be contained. He's a gift, one his mother fought to protect until her last breath. I won't let her down. I won't let Tommy down." "The hearing is in 3 weeks," Linda reminded her. "Harrison's team won't play fair. Then it's good we have the truth on our side." Sarah gathered her coat, ready to go pick up Tommy. "Rebecca may not have won all her battles, but she gave us the weapons to win this war. Her words, her love, her unwavering dedication to her son's future. We just have to be brave enough to use them." The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, just as Sarah was helping Tommy with his science homework. Linda's voice was tight with urgency. "Harrison's wife is here at the office. She wants to meet Tommy, alone." Sarah looked at Tommy, who was carefully drawing the phases of the moon, his tongue stuck out in concentration. "That's not happening," she said firmly. "Sarah, she's threatening to go to the press, about everything." The implications hung heavy in the air. A media circus would mean Tommy's life splashed across newspapers, his grief turned into headlines, his mother's struggles dissected by strangers. "Let me talk to her first," Sarah said. Without Tommy. An hour later, Sarah sat across from Patricia Harrison in a small conference room at CPS. The woman was elegantly dressed, her pregnancy barely showing beneath her designer outfit. But it was her eyes that caught Sarah's attention. They were red-rimmed as if she'd been crying. "You must think I'm the enemy," Patricia said quietly, breaking the tense silence. "The wealthy wife trying to protect her perfect life. I think you're someone whose world has been turned upside down," Sarah replied carefully. "But I'm more concerned about the 7-year-old boy, whose world has already been shattered once." Patricia's hand went unconsciously to her stomach. "James, he told me everything, finally. Not just about Tommy, but about the others. The women he paid off, the secrets he kept." Her voice cracked. 20 years of marriage, and I never knew who he really was." Sarah felt her anger softening despite herself. "Tommy's mother tried to tell you years ago. I know. I found the letters in James's office. She sent them to our home, begging me to just look at a picture of my husband's son." Patricia pulled out a tissue, dabbing at her eyes. "I thought they were lies, attempts at extortion. James assured me. And now? Now I'm carrying a child of my own, and I can't stop thinking about that little boy. About his mother, fighting her demons alone while my husband pretended she never existed." Patricia's composure cracked. "How do I raise my child to be honest and good when their father—" She broke off, shoulders shaking. Sarah watched this powerful woman crumble and felt an unexpected surge of compassion. Another victim of James Harrison's carefully constructed lies. "Tommy drew this yesterday," Sarah said, pulling out a folded paper from her bag. It showed 3 figures again, Sarah, Tommy, and Rebecca among the stars. But this time there was a 4th figure standing apart, a woman with a round belly. Patricia stared at the drawing. He drew me. He knows you're having a baby. He's excited about being a big brother, even if—" Sarah hesitated. "Even if things are complicated. James wants to take him away from you," Patricia said suddenly. "He's hired more lawyers, private investigators. He's desperate to contain the situation before it ruins his reputation. And what do you want?" Patricia looked up, her eyes clear. Despite her tears, "I want to do what should have been done 7 years ago. I want to know my stepson. I want my child to know their brother. I want to help make this right." Before Sarah could respond, a commotion outside the conference room drew their attention. Tommy's voice, high and distressed, carried through the door. "No, I don't want to go with you." They rushed out to find James Harrison in the hallway, his hand on Tommy's shoulder, while Linda tried to intervene. Tommy's face was streaked with tears. "James!" Patricia's voice cracked like a whip. "Let him go, now!" Harrison turned, his face flushing as he saw his wife. "Patricia, you don't understand. I'm trying to protect our family." "This boy is our family," Patricia said, her voice shaking with rage. "The family you denied, the son you abandoned. No more." Tommy broke free of Harrison's grip and ran to Sarah, burying his face in her side. She held him close, feeling his small body trembling. "Mr. Harrison," Linda stepped forward, her professional calm masking fury. "You were not authorized to approach Tommy without supervision. This incident will be reported to the court." Harrison looked between his wife and his son, his carefully constructed world visibly crumbling. "I just wanted—" You wanted to control the situation like you always do, Patricia interrupted. But you can't, not anymore. She turned to Sarah and Tommy, her voice softening. I'm so sorry. For everything. Tommy peeked out from Sarah's embrace, studying his stepmother with wary curiosity. Patricia knelt down, despite her expensive dress, to meet his eyes. I'd like to know you, Tommy, not to take you away from Sarah, but to be part of your life. If you'll let me. Tommy looked up at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. Could my little brother or sister know about Mom too? About her stars? Patricia smiled through her tears. I think that's a wonderful idea. James Harrison stood frozen, watching his two worlds collide and transform. His wife choosing truth over pride, his son offering forgiveness he hadn't earned. The masks were falling, the walls crumbling, and in their place, something new and unexpected was taking root. The possibility of healing. The juvenile court building loomed over them, its brick facade stern and imposing in the February morning light. Sarah straightened Tommy's tie, a small blue clip-on that Rachel had bought him for the occasion. His hair was neatly combed, but his hands couldn't stop fidgeting with the straps of his backpack. Remember what we talked about, Sarah said softly, kneeling to his level. Just tell the truth, that's all anyone can ask of you. What if I say something wrong? Tommy's voice quavered. What if I mess everything up? You can't mess this up. Sweetheart, your feelings are your truth and no one can tell you they're wrong. Linda met them at the courthouse steps, her briefcase bulging with documents. Behind her, Patricia Harrison stood waiting, a silent show of support that still surprised Sarah. James Harrison was nowhere to be seen. He's not coming, Patricia explained, noting Sarah's glance around. After what happened at CPS, well, his lawyers thought it best if he maintained his distance during the proceedings. Inside the courtroom, the battle lines were clearly drawn. Harrison's legal team occupied one side, their expensive suits and leather briefcases speaking of power and influence. On Sarah's side sat Linda, Patricia, and Rachel, who had taken a rare day off from work to testify about Tommy's life with her sister. The judge, a woman in her 60s with steel-grey hair and sharp eyes, began by addressing Tommy directly. Young, man, do you understand why we're here today? Tommy stood, his voice small but clear in the formal courtroom. Yes, Mom, you're deciding where I'm going to live. That's right, and I want you to know that everything you say in this room matters. You're not just a subject being discussed. You're a person with feelings and thoughts that we need to hear. Sarah felt her throat tighten at the judge's kindness, at Tommy's brave little nod. The proceedings began with Harrison's lawyers presenting their case. They spoke of resources, opportunities, the advantages of private education and financial security. They painted Sarah as a well-meaning but inadequate guardian, emphasizing her modest income and lack of formal education beyond high school. But then Linda began her presentation, and the tone of the hearing shifted dramatically. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence the personal journals of Rebecca Matthews, Tommy's mother. She placed a stack of notebooks on the judge's desk. These document not only her struggles and her deep love for her son, but also the systematic way in which James Harrison denied his paternity and refused support. The journals were followed by the emails, the photographs, the rejected plea letters. Each piece of evidence built a picture, not of a woman seeking money, but of a mother fighting to give her child a chance to know his father. Patricia's testimony came as a shock to Harrison's legal team. She spoke of finding the letters, of her husband's deceptions, of her own journey from denial to understanding. Your Honor, she concluded, I'm here to support Sarah Coleman's petition for guardianship. Not because I don't want Tommy in my life, but because I believe she can give him something my husband and I cannot. Unconditional acceptance and love without agenda. Rachel spoke next, describing the transformation she'd witnessed in Tommy since he came to live with Sarah. He has nightmares sometimes, she admitted, about the snow, about his mother. But he knows he's safe now, he knows he's loved. Finally, it was Tommy's turn. He sat in the witness chair, looking smaller than ever, but his voice was steady. Can you tell me about your life with Ms. Coleman? The judge asked gently. She makes me feel safe, Tommy said simply. She helps me remember Mom without feeling sad all the time. She reads me stories and helps with my homework and, his voice caught, she never makes me feel like a secret that needs to be hidden. Harrison's lawyers attempted to redirect the conversation toward future opportunities, but Tommy wasn't finished. I know Mr. Harrison can give me lots of things, But Miss Sarah already gave me the most important thing. He looked directly at the judge. She chose me even when it was hard, even when people told her not to. She chose me every day. The judge leaned forward. And what about Mrs. Harrison? How do you feel about her? Tommy's face brightened slightly. Patricia's nice. She wants to know about Mom, and she lets me talk about the baby. I want to be a big brother. But, he looked at Sarah, his eyes filling with tears. I want to live with Miss Sarah. She's home now. The judicial questions continued, delving into Tommy's school performance, his emotional stability, his adjustment to life with Sarah. Through it all, he remained honest, vulnerable, yet remarkably composed for a 7-year-old carrying such heavy burdens. As the hearing drew to a close, the judge addressed the court. This case presents unique challenges. We have biological ties competing with emotional bonds, financial resources competing with proven dedication. But family court's primary concern is not about DNA or bank accounts. It's about the best interest of the child. She looked directly at Tommy, who had returned to sit between Sarah and Patricia. Young man, you have shown remarkable wisdom today. Your mother, both the one watching from the stars and the one sitting beside you, would be very proud. Sarah felt Tommy's hand slip into hers, squeezing tight as they waited for the judge's decision, knowing that whatever came next, some fundamental truth had already been spoken in that courtroom. That family was about more than blood or money or power. It was about choosing to love, choosing to stay, choosing to fight for what matters most. The judge's chambers felt smaller than the courtroom, more intimate. Sarah sat beside Linda while Patricia occupied a chair near the window. Tommy had been taken to the children's waiting area with Rachel, where his nervous energy could be channeled into drawing rather than listening to adults decide his fate. What I'm about to propose is unconventional, Judge Martinez began, her reading glasses perched on the edge of her nose as she reviewed her notes. But then, everything about this case has been unconventional from the start. She looked up, studying the women before her. Mrs. Harrison, your testimony today was brave. It couldn't have been easy to speak against your husband's interests. Patricia's hand rested protectively over her growing belly. The easy path isn't always the right one. I learned that too late for Tommy's mother, but I won't make the same mistake with her son. The judge nodded, turning to Sarah. Ms. Coleman, your dedication to this child is remarkable. You've provided something that can't be measured in dollars or square footage. Emotional security during profound trauma. He's not just a child I found at a bus stop anymore, Sarah said softly. He's my son, in every way that matters. Which brings me to my proposal. Judge Martinez removed her glasses, leaning forward. Instead of choosing between two extremes, full custody with either party, I'm considering a more nuanced approach. Primary custody and guardianship would remain with Ms. Coleman, but with structured visitation and involvement from the Harrisons, more specifically from you, Mrs. Harrison. Patricia's eyes widened. James won't like that. Mr. Harrison's preferences are not my primary concern. Tommy's welfare is. The judge's voice was firm. The boy has expressed a clear desire to maintain his home with Ms. Coleman while building a relationship with his sibling-to-be. I believe we can honor both needs. Sarah felt hope bubble up in her chest. How would it work? Mrs. Harrison would have regular visitation rights, including overnight stays once Tommy feels comfortable. She could attend school events, participate in holidays, be part of Tommy's extended family without disrupting his primary home life. And James? Patricia asked quietly. Mr. Harrison's access would be supervised and contingent upon Tommy's comfort. Level and therapeutic recommendations. He has much trust to rebuild. The judge shuffled some papers. Additionally, I'm inclined to order that the trust fund Rebecca Matthews refused years ago be established now, not as a bargaining chip, but as Tommy's rightful inheritance. Linda spoke up for the first time. Your Honor, what about Rebecca's journals? Tommy hasn't read them yet. They'll be released to Ms. Coleman's custody. She can share them with Tommy when she feels he's ready. The judge's expression softened. Those journals tell a love story, complicated and tragic, but pure in its essence. Tommy deserves to know that story when the time is right. Sarah thought of the notebooks, filled with a mother's hopes and fears, her dreams for her son. I've been recording memories with Tommy, she said. Little things he remembers about Rebecca. We write them down so he won't forget. That's exactly why you're the right choice for primary custody, the judge smiled. You're not trying to replace his mother. You're helping him honor her memory while building a new future. Patricia stood suddenly, moving to Sarah's chair. Thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion, for loving him when we didn't, for seeing him when we looked away. She held out her hand. I promise to be the best stepmother I can be. On your terms, at Tommy's pace. Sarah took the offered hand, feeling the weight of the moment. Two women from different worlds, united by love for one little boy. He's excited about the baby, she said. Keeps drawing pictures of himself teaching his little brother or sister about the stars, like Rebecca taught him. Patricia smiled through tears. I'd like to learn about them too, about her. Maybe we all could. The judge watched this exchange with approval. I'll have my clerk draw up the official orders, but I believe we've found our path forward. Mrs. Harrison, can you accept these terms on behalf of your family? Patricia straightened, one hand still clasped with Sarah's, the other resting on her stomach. Yes, Your Honor. And if James cannot, well, that will be his loss to bear. I won't let Tommy down again. Ms. Coleman, are you prepared for the challenges ahead? Co-parenting isn't easy under the best circumstances. Sarah thought of Tommy in the waiting room, probably adding to his collection of star-filled family portraits. She thought of Rebecca's journals, waiting to share their wisdom and love. She thought of her own journey, from bus driver to mother, guided by nothing more than the certainty that some children find their way to exactly the hearts they need. I'm prepared, she said firmly. Tommy and we're already family. Now we're just making room for that family to grow. Judge Martinez smiled, making a final note in her file. Then let's bring Tommy in and share the good news. I think he's drawn enough pictures for one day. As Linda went to fetch Tommy, Sarah and Patricia shared a look of understanding. The road ahead would have its bumps and turns, but they would navigate it together, guided by the light of a mother's love, both the one who watched from the stars and the ones who remained to carry her dreams forward. Spring came early to Detroit that year, melting away the snow that had brought Tommy and Sarah together. The crocuses were just beginning to peek through the soil in Patricia's garden when Tommy had his first overnight stay at the Harrison house. Sarah had helped him pack his backpack, including his favorite constellation book and the framed photo of Rebecca that never left his bedside. You can call me any time, Sarah reminded him, straightening his jacket in the Harrisons' circular driveway. Even if it's just to say goodnight. I know. Tommy smiled, more confident now than he'd been in months. Patricia said we're going to plant Mom's favorite flowers in the baby's garden. Did you know Mom loved sunflowers? Sarah hadn't known, but she was learning more about Rebecca Matthews every day through Tommy's memories and the journals they'd begun reading together. Each entry revealed new layers of a mother's love, preserved in ink and paper for her son to discover. Patricia waddled out to greet them, her pregnancy now clearly visible. Tommy, I found some old telescopes in the attic. I thought maybe you could teach me about the constellations tonight. Tommy's face lit up. Can we set them up in the backyard? The view's really good from there. Of course. And tomorrow we'll work on the garden. Patricia turned to Sarah, her expression warm. Would you like to join us for dinner? We're having pizza. Tommy's choice. 6 months ago, such an invitation would have seemed impossible. Now it felt natural, part of their new normal. I'd like that, Sarah said. I have something to share with both of you anyway. Over pizza that evening, as Tommy arranged his toppings into star patterns, Sarah pulled out an envelope. The adoption papers came through today, she said quietly. With Patricia's support and James's, well, his agreement to step back, the court fast-tracked the process. Tommy looked up, his eyes wide. You mean it's official? You're really my mom now, forever? Forever and ever, Sarah confirmed, her voice thick with emotion. But you know this doesn't change anything about your first mom, right? Rebecca will always be my star mom, Tommy finished, using the term he'd coined himself. And you're my earth mom, he turned to Patricia. And you're my bonus mom, and soon I'll have a bonus sister or brother too. Patricia wiped tears from her eyes, something that happened frequently these days, though she blamed it on pregnancy hormones. That's right, one big unconventional family, just like Judge Martinez said. Later that night, after they'd spent hours stargazing in the backyard, Sarah prepared to leave. Tommy hugged her tightly. I'll see you tomorrow after school, right after. Patricia will pick you up and bring you to my place, our home. Tommy corrected with a smile. As Sarah drove back to her apartment, she thought about how much had changed. Her sister Rachel had finally come around, becoming Tommy's favorite aunt. The trust fund was set up, ensuring Tommy's education and future were secure. Even her job had evolved. The bus company had promoted her to training supervisor, allowing for more regular hours with Tommy. James Harrison remained on the periphery, attending mandatory counseling sessions and supervised visits. He was trying, in his own way, to understand the magnitude of his mistakes. Tommy approached these visits with cautious optimism, protected by the knowledge that he had a whole network of love supporting him now. The apartment was quiet without Tommy, but Sarah didn't feel alone. Rebecca's presence lived on in the stories they shared, in the journals they read, in the stars that Tommy insisted on mapping on his bedroom ceiling. On the refrigerator, a new drawing showed their expanding family. Sarah, Tommy, Patricia with a round belly, and Rebecca among the stars, all connected by golden lines of love. Sarah touched the drawing gently, remembering something Rebecca had written in one of her final journal entries. Love isn't a finite resource that gets divided and diminished. It multiplies, grows, finds new ways to shine. Tommy has enough love in his heart for all the family he might find, just as I have enough love to let him go when I must. Those words had proven prophetic. Tommy's capacity for love had only grown, embracing Sarah's devotion, accepting Patricia's friendship, even finding space to forgive James's failures. He was teaching them all that family couldn't be defined by conventional boundaries. It was as vast and mysterious as the universe itself, with room for every kind of love to shine. As Sarah got ready for bed, her phone chimed with a text from Patricia. "He's showing me how to find the North Star. Says his mom taught him it would always lead him home. Both his moms were right about that." Attached was a photo of Tommy, illuminated by starlight, his face glowing with the joy of sharing. His mother's wisdom with his growing family. Sarah saved the picture, adding it to their expanding collection of moments that proved love could transcend loss, that healing could come in unexpected ways, that sometimes the longest journey home began with a single step into the snow. The day Tommy's sister was born, the spring sunflowers in Patricia's garden were just beginning to bloom. He stood in the hospital hallway, clutching a small gift bag containing a stuffed star he'd picked out himself, while Sarah held his hand and tried to calm his excited fidgeting. "What if she doesn't like me?" Tommy whispered, his confidence suddenly wavering. "She's going to love you," Sarah assured him. "You're her big brother. That's a very special job." Patricia's nurse appeared in the doorway, smiling. "She's ready for visitors. Come meet your sister, Tommy." The baby was tiny, wrapped in a pink blanket, her dark eyes wide and alert. Patricia looked tired but radiant as she held her daughter. "Tommy, meet Rebecca Grace Harrison." Tommy's breath caught. "You named her after Mom? Your mother gave me the greatest gift possible, you as a son," Patricia said softly. Naming her after Rebecca felt right, a way to keep her memory alive. "Her our growing family." Sarah watched as Tommy approached the bed carefully, still clutching his gift. "I brought her something," he said, "so she'll always be able to find her way home like Mom taught me." He pulled out the stuffed star, its fabric shimmering with subtle constellations. Patricia's eyes welled up as she took it, placing it gently beside the baby. "It's perfect. Would you like to hold her?" With Sarah's help, Tommy settled into a chair, his arms positioned just right to cradle his sister. As he looked down at her, his face filled with wonder. "Hi, baby Rebecca," he whispered. "I'm your big brother. So I'm going to teach you all about the stars and Mom, both our moms in heaven and on earth, and how families can be bigger than anyone expects." The baby grabbed his finger, holding tight, and Tommy looked up at Sarah and Patricia with pure joy. "She's stronger than she looks." Just like her brother, Patricia smiled, just like her namesake. Later that evening, as Sarah and Tommy walked through the hospital parking lot, under a sky turning purple with dusk, Tommy spotted the first star of the night. "Look, the evening star. Mom always said it was really Venus, but we could pretend it was a wishing star anyway." "What would you wish for?" Sarah asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "Nothing," Tommy said, surprising her. "I have everything I need now. A home, 2 moms here and one in the stars, a sister to protect, and a whole big family that chose each other." Sarah felt her heart swell. This wise little boy who had walked through the snow looking for help had become the center of a universe none of them could have imagined. Your mom would be so proud of you, Tommy. All of us are. No, he said simply. I can feel it, like starlight. You can't always see where it comes from, but you know it's there. At home that night, Tommy added to his ever-growing collection of family drawings. This one showed baby Rebecca in the center, surrounded by a constellation of love. Sarah, Patricia, Tommy himself, and above them all the original Rebecca, her star shining brightest of all. Our family's like the sky, Tommy explained as he colored. Some stars you can see, some you can't, but they're all connected, and there's always room for more stars. Sarah hung the drawing on the refrigerator next to all the others, each one marking a chapter in their extraordinary journey. From that first snowy morning to this warm spring evening, they had built something remarkable, a family defined not by blood or law, but by choice and love and the courage to believe in both. As she tucked Tommy into bed, surrounded by the glow-in-the-dark stars on his ceiling, he asked sleepily, "Do you think baby Rebecca will understand about our special family when she's bigger?" "She'll understand," Sarah assured him, smoothing his hair, "because she'll have the best big brother to show her that love makes all kinds of families possible, that sometimes the most beautiful constellations are the ones we create ourselves." Tommy smiled, already drifting off. Like Mom always said, light finds a way to shine even in the darkest night. Sarah kissed his forehead, thinking of all the lights that had guided them here, Rebecca's enduring love, Patricia's brave choices, and most of all, Tommy's unwavering faith in the power of chosen family. Outside his window, Venus continued to shine, a beacon of hope for all those still finding their way home. 1 year had passed since that snowy morning at the bus stop. Tommy's 8th birthday party filled Sarah's backyard with laughter, the autumn air crisp and clean. Baby Rebecca, now 6 months old, dozed in Patricia's arms while Tommy showed his school friends the telescope he'd received, a joint gift from Sarah and the Harrisons. "Mom!" Tommy called out, using the name that now felt as natural as breathing to both him and Sarah. "Can we set up the telescope after everyone leaves? The moon's going to be full tonight." "Of course, sweetheart," Sarah replied, setting out another plate of cupcakes decorated with star-shaped sprinkles. Each one had been carefully crafted, according to Rebecca's recipe, found in one of her journals, the same journals that now sat in a special box in Tommy's room, read page by page during their nightly story times. Rachel appeared at Sarah's side helping with the decorations. "Who would have thought a year ago that we'd be here?" she mused, watching Tommy demonstrate constellation patterns to his friends using glow-stick bracelets. "You, me, the Harrisons, all these kids, it's like a miracle, the kind that takes work." Sarah smiled, remembering the challenges they'd overcome, the late-night tears, the difficult questions, the gradual building of trust between all parties. Even James Harrison had begun to change, attending therapy regularly and learning to connect with his son on Tommy's terms. Patricia made her way over, gently rocking a stirring Rebecca. "Tommy's been telling everyone about the star map he's making. For the baby's room," she said, "he's determined she'll know all the constellations before she can walk. Just like his mother taught him." Sarah nodded, and they all knew which mother she meant. Rebecca's presence was everywhere today, in the recipe of the cupcakes, in the star theme Tommy had insisted on, in the gentle way he looked after his baby sister. The party continued into the afternoon, a celebration not just of Tommy's birthday, but of the family they'd built. Linda Warren stopped by, no longer as a social worker but as a friend, bearing a gift and news about a support group she'd helped establish for unconventional families like theirs. As the sun began to set and guests started to leave, Tommy gathered his closest family around the picnic table. "I want to show you something," he said, pulling out a carefully wrapped package. "I made it in art class." Inside was a handmade book, its cover decorated with silver stars. "The Story of My Family," read the title in Tommy's careful handwriting. He opened it slowly, revealing pages filled with photographs, drawings, and written memories. The first page showed Rebecca, smiling in the photo they'd found in her journals. "My star mom," the caption read, "who taught me about love and constellations." The next pages chronicled their journey. Sarah finding Tommy at the bus stop, their first days together, the courthouse victory, Patricia entering their lives, baby Rebecca's arrival. Each memory carefully preserved, each moment honored. "My teacher said families come in all shapes," Tommy explained, turning the pages. "Like constellations, different stars making different patterns, but all of them important. Sarah felt tears welling up as she read Tommy's descriptions. My Earth Mom, who found me in the snow and chose me forever. My bonus mom, Patricia, who helped make our family bigger. My sister Rebecca, named after my star mom, who holds my finger really tight. Even James had a page. My dad, who's learning that love is stronger than mistakes. It's not finished, Tommy said, showing the blank pages at the end, because our family keeps growing, not just with people, but with love and memories and stories. Patricia wiped her eyes, balancing baby Rebecca, while she hugged Tommy with one arm. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Your mum, all of us, we're so proud of you. Sarah watched as Tommy showed Rachel and Linda the rest of the book, his face glowing with pride and love. The healing they'd witnessed over the past year had been remarkable. Tommy still had moments of sadness, still missed Rebecca with an ache that would never fully fade. But he'd learned to hold that grief alongside joy, to understand that love could multiply without diminishing. Later that night, after the party cleanup was done and the telescope was set up in the backyard, Sarah and Tommy lay on a blanket, gazing at the stars. Baby Rebecca slept nearby in her carrier, Patricia having stayed for the stargazing session. Mom? Tommy asked softly. Do you think this is what Mom, Star Mom, wanted? All of us together like this? Sarah thought about Rebecca's journals, about her fierce love for her son, about her final wish for Tommy to find the family he deserved. Yes, she said confidently, I think this is exactly what she wanted. A family big enough to hold all the love you have to give. Tommy pointed to a bright star overhead. That one's part of Cygnus, the swan. Mum said it was like a bird flying through the Milky Way, carrying wishes and dreams. What would you wish for now? Sarah asked, echoing her question from months ago. Tommy was quiet for a moment, then smiled. Just this. Just us. All my mums, my sister. Our family under the stars. It's better than any wish. Above them, the swan constellation soared across the autumn sky, carrying the dreams of a mother who'd loved enough to let go, a boy who'd been brave enough to keep his heart open, and the family that had formed in the space between Earth and stars. The bus stop looked different in the warm light of early summer, its metal frame gleaming under a bright blue sky. Tommy stood before it, holding Sarah's hand on one side and Patricia's on the other, while baby Rebecca slept peacefully in her stroller. 1 year to the day since that fateful winter morning, they had gathered here for a special purpose. Are you ready? Sarah asked gently, squeezing Tommy's hand. He nodded, reaching into his backpack to pull out a small wooden box he'd crafted in his school's woodworking class. Inside were sunflower seeds, Rebecca's favorite flower, and a letter he'd written himself. Dear Mom, Tommy read aloud, his voice clear and strong. I found my way home, just like you always said I would. Not to the home we used to have, but to a bigger one. One with enough room for all the love you taught me to give. Patricia wiped tears from her eyes as Tommy continued reading. I have a sister now, and she's named after you. I tell her about the stars every night, and sometimes she looks up at the sky and laughs like she can see you watching over us. Sarah says babies can see things we can't, so maybe she really can. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of nearby trees as Tommy's words carried into the summer air. I'm not angry anymore about you leaving. Sarah helped me understand that sometimes people we love fight battles we can't see, and that your love, for me, was stronger than anything, even stronger than the darkness that took you away. Baby Rebecca stirred in her stroller, making soft cooing sounds. Tommy smiled at his sister before turning back to his letter. Patricia and Sarah taught me that mums come in different ways, but all of them are real. You're my star mom, watching from above. Sarah's my Earth mum who found me when I was lost, and Patricia's my bonus mum who helped make our family complete. He paused, looking up at the bus stop sign. Sometimes I come here with Sarah when she's driving her route. She lets me tell other kids about how families can grow in unexpected ways, like flowers breaking through concrete. Dad's learning this, too. He's different now. He listens more. And last week he helped me build a new telescope stand for watching your stars. Sarah felt her heart swell with pride as Tommy reached the end of his letter. I want you to know that I'm okay. I'm more than okay, I'm happy. And it's okay for you to be happy too. Wherever you are among the stars, you don't have to worry about me anymore. I have so many people to love me now, and I know how to keep your love alive in my heart. Tommy folded the letter carefully, placing it in the wooden box with the sunflower seeds. Together, They walked to a small patch of earth near the bus stop, where the city had granted them permission to create a tiny garden. Tommy dug a small hole, placing the box inside. "The sunflowers will grow here," he explained, "and everyone who waits at this bus stop will see them. Maybe they'll help other kids who feel lost. Show them that beautiful things can grow in unexpected places." As they covered the box with soil, Patricia spoke softly. "Rebecca would be so proud of you, Tommy, of your strength, your wisdom, your capacity to love." "She is proud," Tommy said with certainty. "I feel it every time I look at the stars." He turned to Sarah. "Just like I feel your love every morning when I wake up, and every night when you tuck me in." Sarah pulled him close, remembering that snowy morning that had changed everything. "You taught me about love too, you know, about how the heart expands to hold whatever it needs to hold." They stood together, this remarkable family, watching as Tommy patted the soil one final time. Above them, though hidden by daylight, the stars continued their eternal dance, including one that shone with a mother's endless love. "Mom?" Tommy looked up at Sarah. "Can we get ice cream? Star Mom always said celebrations need ice cream." Sarah laughed, wiping away tears. "Of course we can. Patricia, James said he'd meet us at the parlor, right?" Patricia nodded, adjusting baby Rebecca's sunshade. "He's bringing those constellation cards Tommy's been asking for." As they walked away from the bus stop, Tommy took one last look over his shoulder. The spot where he'd planted the seeds seemed to shimmer in the sunlight, promising future blooms. Just like the family that had grown from grief and love and courage, beautiful things would flourish here. "You know what Mom used to say about sunflowers?" Tommy asked as they walked. "She said they always turn their faces to the sun, no matter how dark the day gets, just like people can always turn toward love if they're brave enough to try." Sarah hugged him close, thinking of all the love that had brought them to this moment. Rebecca's lasting legacy, Patricia's open heart, James's gradual redemption, and Tommy's unwavering faith in the power of chosen family. Above them, a single cloud drifted across the summer sky, its shape reminiscent of a flower reaching for the sun. And somewhere in the infinite expanse of space and love, a mother's spirit smiled down on the garden her son had helped grow, a garden of sunflowers and stars, of healing and hope, of family forged in the crucible of loss and found in the miracle of love. The end. If you, like us, believe in the power of love and second chances, please subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss any more heartwarming stories. Thank you.